friends, you know how it goes now. No, we don't know how it goes. It's always brand new, isn't it? But whatever questions or comments you have or things you'd like to share for the good of all for our practice, please do. Somebody's still having fun down there. Camilo.
I was here this morning.
Yes.
And the question was percolating. So I guess I've had all day to refine it, but I think I'm still going to stammer through it. What's interesting about the question is that I believe I already know the answer, and they were all articulately addressed by Bill this morning.
Yeah.
And if I can try to recall some of the themes that came up in his responses. To the first question, there was a comment about expectations and how expectations can really interfere with what you're trying to do in a connection with someone.
Yeah.
And the second question was a very long question having to do with the practice, but one of the things I took away from that had something to do with the idea of separateness and connectedness. And that led to a third question, which was about connection, and the person who asked the question expressed the realization that she really had difficulty with connectedness. So I thought that my question had to do with the mirror image of that question about difficulty with connectedness. I am very open to it, and I seek it. And I find that I can make connections, but when I feel like they're not being reciprocated, I have difficulties keeping my heart open. And it's really a challenge to let go of that expectation. And it's, I guess, a lifelong habit that I'm not able to let go of.
What's the habit? Can you say more?
Of feeling that reciprocity is deserved, and that when it isn't forthcoming, that I'm left not really feeling as warm about what really is essentially a very good relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds familiar. I think it's part of being human. I want to back up a little and just point out we're always connected to everyone. That's the Buddhist worldview. So it's not like sometimes I'm not connected to you. Even we're not physically in the same space. We're connected with friends and family, we're connected with strangers, and we're connected with so-called enemies or difficult people. That's the web of interconnectedness that's just there, okay? Now, the only thing that gets in the way of that is, well, nothing gets in the way of its reality, but what gets in the way of us experiencing it is we want to control it. And that's what Tracy was talking about this morning. When she said she struggles with connection, she was saying she struggles with just allowing it. It starts happening, and this is often true for many of us. We get scared and we back away, or we get greedy and we rush forward, and then everything falls out from that, right? They did not reciprocate the way I wanted, the way I expected. You had a great phrase there, I think what you said, when it's not reciprocated as you expected or something. You kind of saw that, like, oh, there's some I in here trying to run the show. And the truth is that other person has an I just like that trying to run the show. And they have their needs, you have your needs. So even in a very close partnership, an intimate partnership, those needs rarely, coincide perfectly. Rarely, It's all a negotiation constantly between humans. What was the quote? You get everything, you try everything, and it eventually shows you that it doesn't work. Well, what is this work? Let's make it work. Well, I have my idea about it's working now for me. But the other person comes forth and says, well, that's not working for me. This is our human condition. And it's when we can stand in that with love, real love, not romantic, exaggerated love, not love based on I, me, mine, I, me, mine, but love based on we are connected, we are both human, we both suffer, we both deserve happiness. I will do what I can to make that happen for you and for me. It's more like that. My friend Bob Wilson, I was really struggling with, he's the Nomsy here, and what a character, what a lovely character. Anyway, we've been friends for a long time, and I was describing a really difficult relationship I've had for a long time with this person. And I just said, I don't know what to do now. I've tried all my Buddhist tricks. I've tried all my therapy tricks. I've tried all my... And he just looked at me and he said, Zopa, I think you should love them even more. I just stood there. It was like, yep, that's the answer. I should love them even more. Now, there's a should in there, but dump the should out and just say, I will love them even more. And what I got is love them as they are. That's not what I want. It's not what I expect. But love them as they are. Sometimes that means all kinds. Okay, so that's the view. Okay. Then we got to have strategy and tactics. Okay. So then the strategy is, what can I do to make that happen? Well, maybe I'm being too forward. Maybe I need to relax and just love from a little further away. Or maybe I need to ask them something. Maybe I need to, what set me off about this one person was asking, are you open to listening to me? And he said, no. Oh my God, did that cause a cascade of feelings? And I dearly love this person. But that no, in a Buddhist sense, all you do is you go back to the cushion and you go, what a great teacher that person is for me right now. Because everything I think I'm so good at, I'm so la-la. it just pulled the rug out, and boom, you're on your bum, and you're going, I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm confused, and then you work with it. And clarity comes. And I have quite a good relationship with that person, but he trusts me enough to sometimes say, Zopa, that's enough. And then I have all my reactions, which are my big fat ego, that I have to work on anyway for all people. That's how I look at it. That's how my teachers have helped me look at it.
Yeah, where I have stumbled is that I think that I have the expectation of reciprocity because
that was the phrase you used.
I deserve it. I have earned it, but I've realized that that's false.
Thank you. That's a wonderful insight. That's a very loving insight. That's the kind of love that we're talking about. To be humble enough to go, oops, I stepped in it here. And then sometimes you don't go apologize to that person personally, because sometimes they don't even want that. But you just straighten it up. I've also had this happen, and probably some of you have. You're a bunch of wise and kind people, where you don't do anything directly with the person, but you do something in your meditation, like have them there with you in your imagination, and you pour down white light, and you just wish, I wish we'd find harmony, I wish I'd get clear. And the next time you see them, something has shifted. It's so interesting. I've had that happen with really difficult stuff, using the deity Vajrasattva, which is the purification deity, and just bringing all that white light, but you don't have to know anything about that deity form, just white light, loving light, pour it down, and just see all the difficulties washing away. It doesn't, but sometimes it just manifests, and sometimes it doesn't, but it can. And it certainly can calm your own mind. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Camilo.
One of the things I found that helps in that direction is in Lojong, there's a lot of slogans.
Yes.
And the most radical one I've found, I think, is drive all blames into one. And I used that recently in a situation where there was some disharmony and expectations of some kind of reciprocity that was missing. And I thought, well, we'll have this out. So we had a meeting, and I talked about drive all blames into one, that I was going to drive all blames into one, and that phrase keeps growing and changing as I'm understanding it. It gets bigger and broader until now I can see that driving all blame into one means that I have to be totally responsible for everything, including my thoughts and your thoughts and the person, the people that we're having this problem with. I'm going to accept all of their, whatever it is, negativity, as my doing. And that puts this duality into a non-dual state.
Yeah.
Because we've all become one, and the separation disappears when we're all one. So when you drive all blames into one, there is no more separation. And that has helped me a great deal. So.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Sanjay. And that one is our puffed up ego that doesn't want to take. Ego can sometimes confuse us, but the puffed up part of ourself that's proud, that's frightened, that's defensive, and does not want to take even the part that truly is ours on a relative level. Like, no, it's not me, it's you. And we know where that goes. But because it's like, I'm all loving and you're cold or you're mean or you're angry. And if we flip it, as you just pointed out, that Lojong encourages us to do, and even to the point where I found it very helpful to, Venerable Chidren encourages this, to think, what did I contribute to this occurring? You know, back and back and back. You know, how did I have my little part in this? And then to go further, to just within that framework, I don't like the word blame. I think it's kind of tricky for Westerners, but responsibility, you said, that's a great word. You know, how can I step up as a bodhisattva and be responsible here, be the grown-up here? And it's tricky again because there's always ditches to fall into, so then we can fall into actually blaming ourselves. And we'll know when we do that because we end up not happy, and you're describing you end up at peace. And that's the fruit. You know, it means, oh, I applied it correctly. But we actually can, you know, start beating ourselves up with that drive all blame. If we're not clear that the part being blamed is the negative patterns that have set this up, with either exaggerating the positive and running after it, which means we didn't see it clearly, or exaggerating the negative and pushing it away and doing all that. It's quite difficult for us to see things clearly. Really, that's our job. That's our job. But it's hard. It's really hard, even on a relative level, much less on the level of there is no separate you and me. I can't be here talking about this right now without Sanjay and Camilo having raised this. That's how interconnected we are. These words are dependent on what you brought. And the thoughts everyone's having were just like that. Yeah.
Can I add one more thing?
Of course.
This is a question I asked Lama Michael a couple of years ago. We were talking about prayer, and I mentioned to him that usually my understanding of prayer was from Christian background that you pray to someone who kind of is an interceptor. You pray to God or Mary or Jesus, and then they fix whatever's going on out here.
Yeah.
So I said, well, what about in Buddhism? How does prayer work? And he said, that's easy. You know, you don't have any third party. It goes directly to that person because of our interconnectedness.
Yeah.
And that was major, big understanding.
Yeah, thank you. And it simultaneously heals our mind. Someone says, why do you pray? I say, because it heals my mind. I hear someone got into difficulties or got sick, and if my mind can go to wishing them well, and I calm down instead of running around like, what do I do? What do I do? This is awful. So then peace comes here, then it goes out. Yeah, thanks, Sanjay. Yeah, Louisa.
Well, I have, concerning all this, what I'm trying to do now, I have a 9-month-old at my house. I never had kids, and I didn't know how, I did know through my dogs how much this creates a lot of anger in me. It's unbelievable.
Oh.
And towards somebody who really has nothing to do with that. So it's kind of interesting how I'm trying to hold all this, even my anger. I don't want to throw it away. I want to just keep it in my arms and hold it until it transforms in something positive, because it's something that I really experienced various times with my dogs when they're very young. I don't know why I get really extremely violent. I have this violence that comes out of me. So I just wanted to know if this is the way to deal with it, or, it's just really it's something that comes out of me. So I don't want to discard it. I don't want to judge it. I just want to say that's how it is. Mm-hmm. And I want to try to use it, as you were saying before.
So use it to
transform it in a positive way. I mean, not in a negative way, but I need to understand that it's there, that it has a form that comes out of me, triggered by whatever, kind of person that has no...
Yeah, a little innocent 9-month-old.
Correct.
It's really good with kids because, we get angry and we get to see it really clearly, because it's like they're just being a child. But it comes up. So I'm not clear what your question is, though. I hear you are seeing your anger.
My question is, what do I do with it? I mean, I'm trying to use a method which it really works for me, which means hold this feeling, or whatever that kind of feeling is, in like holding really as if it were a child, the feeling in itself, so that I can kind of process it.
Yeah.
Because the problem is processing it. Otherwise, I start judging myself. I start saying you're terrible, you're not a good person, you really don't love people, and you're very self-centered, whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to avoid that because I know it doesn't help.
So you want other ideas?
Yeah.
Okay. Because you're already doing, I heard at least 2 very good things, maybe more. You see it, you know it's from within you. You know this little one's not causing it. You do what you call hold it. I don't really know what that means, but maybe that means you try not to spew it around. Is that kind of?
Yeah, I'm trying to hold it tender.
Hold it tenderly.
So that it kind of, I know it's mine, I know it comes from me, I don't know where it comes from. I just want to get to the root.
Yeah, and then you do something else you described quite good, and I'm teasing this out because we all have to deal with anger. The triggers for different ones of us are different, but we all have it. So the third one is you don't add blame to it. You're not judging and blaming yourself, or you see that tendency, like, first there's the suffering of anger, and now I see I'm about adding suffering of I'm bad for having anger, and anger's bad, and I'm a loser, and da-da-da-da. Yeah, okay. Then we're really gone. So it's very hard to deal with anger when you're right smack in it. So what some of my teachers have said that's very helpful is do a lot of sessions, as many as you can, on the cushion away from the triggering person, and contemplate the disadvantages of anger over and over. That starts training your mind, like, I really don't want to go there. What are the disadvantages? Just physically, my blood pressure goes up. I feel uncomfortable. I'm miserable. I'm the first victim of it. People don't like it. It's unfair to the other. It's arising due to my karmic tendencies, not blaming, but laying that out as a fact. So this is a perfect example of what karma is. Karma is just these mental tendencies. We can have mental tendencies towards craving. That's my favorite. I can get to anger, but mostly I'm just a craver. But it's important for me to know that and to see that, like, when I follow this craving, where does it go? When I follow this anger, where does it go? So do contemplative meditations on it. And then a lot of loving kindness, because we need to apply the antidote. What's that? Yeah, whenever a negative thought arises disturbing my mind and others, I will firmly confront and avert it. That verse from the Dalai Lama in the 8 verses of thought transformation, firmly confront and avert it. So you see it, that's the first thing. Then you're confronting it and you're averting it. But this transformation will occur within it. So a lot of loving kindness toward this little one in your mind. Not so much what you do, but in your mind and toward yourself. And you might want to try, I'm having a memory of something that worked for me really well. A Buddhist therapist once said to me about this, said, do Tonglen with yourself at that age. So put little Louisa at 9 months, 18 months, whatever, and sit there and imagine taking the pain of that little one and giving that loving, constant loving light. Imagine some healing. Or put the little one that's actually in your house, in your imagination. Do a lot of Tonglen. And then, I'm with 3 grandsons off and on. So boy, am I good at this anger thing and at, transforming it. But, you really get tricky, get creative. Sometimes I remove myself. I don't know if I told you the time I put myself in timeout. I was over at my stepson, I just call him my son because I've known him for over 15 years, at their house, and we were at the dinner table, and oh my God, the 2 boys were just wound up, and the little one finished his food and went over and started messing with something he wasn't supposed to, and kind of looking at everyone like, am I going to get away with this? So I was already kind of irritated at that. And then the older one got really angry and threw his plate across the table. And I just had it. I became my mother who doesn't, this is not going to happen in this house. And I said something very firm, and then my stepson said something to me about me not taking control. And I just exploded, and I said, I'm going into time out, which I had not pre-thought of. It was actually some wisdom coming that just kind of, and I marched down the hall, and I slammed the bedroom door, and I just sat there shaking, literally, because I was so angry. But be creative like that. It worked really well. A couple things happened. There was dead silence in the kitchen. The boys had never seen Grandma lose it, and it was like, oh wow, this is serious, And then after about 4 minutes, probably wasn't that long, my stepson came and knocked on the door and said, "Can we talk?" And I said, "Not yet." He said, "Okay," and he went away. But, we talked after I said, "I'm just not calm enough yet." And it was a sincere just boom. But sometimes we have to get out of the situation. I mean, it was like, next thing I would have been, who knows what, throwing dishes myself, smacking kids, who knows. But it was like, best to go in timeout. So have a lot of things in your back pocket. I can put myself in timeout. I had a friend who worked with men who had been involved in domestic violence, and they were in anger management program. And I would talk with these guys, and they would say, the one thing I can remember that he said, that the trainer has said, when I'm home and I feel that building, is he would say, turn to your partner and say, I'm going to go run now. I'll be back. And just run out the door and run and run and run as long and as far as you need. And don't stop running till the anger is down. So walk out the door. Yeah, I mean, if you're not the main caretaker. Yeah. So there's all kind of ways we can get creative in our wisdom. The patterns make us think we're stuck. You know, I'm stuck here. We're never stuck. We just believe that we are. Yeah, Robin.
Funny, this is not the question, but a funny thing about being in timeout is that my ex used to, like, be like, with her daughter, would be like, I think we need to go take some time, as opposed to saying time out, like it's a punishment, but like, we got to go take some time, and she would go sit with her.
Yes.
And like, basically kind of in a way teach like being mindful of your anger and also how to calm down, and like meditation techniques for like a little 4-year-old, like, here, just like, we're gonna go take some time together right now, and so we can mellow out. Nice,
because it shifts the thing. It's like, we're caught here, let's move over here, we're not caught. And that's the newest form of time, old time out, is let's take time together. And the parent goes into the timeout with the child.
Well, which is...
And take some breaths. Take some breaths.
It's usually a good idea, considering the parent was getting also very angry and like not really paying attention to how they're acting. So
instead of drive, I'll blame it to the child and put them in timeout. Yeah.
And then also the timeout's not an anger experience where it's like, it's bad. Anyway, on to my own question. I sometimes recently I'll have periods they feel like very long periods where I just feel like I have a very heavy, like wet blanket on my brain, and it's not necessarily, it's like a depression. Like, I don't want to be around people. I don't want to talk. I don't want to take my dog for a walk. I don't want to do anything. And a lot of during those times, it's not like, and it's not a wool blanket that'll reflect my heat, but like a cotton one that's just cold and miserable. So sometimes it makes me feel like pretty strong fear around getting on the cushion, that like, what is going to happen when I get on the cushion? Am I just going to like sit and then just like that blanket just gets heavier and wetter? You know? Yeah, I know what you're talking about. And like the fear comes up, because sometimes I notice when I do sit in that state, it's not
helpful.
No, it doesn't feel helpful. I just sort of get heavier, and so then I just have definite fear around like sitting in that state. Like, so I guess my question is like, what do in that situation? I mean, sometimes I'll
don't sit. Don't sit. Don't sit in that situation. Go for a walk and do mantra. It's really quite good sometimes. Take your mala and go outside, even wherever. And as you go, do mantra for all the people you see, because part of it is getting out of the tightness of me. You know, me, I'm scared. And go out and walk around, look at dogs, people, bugs, people in cars, and wish them well as you do whatever mantras you do, Chenrezig or whatever, and just call that your practice. We can give ourselves days off, you know. Sometimes we just need a day off from it to lift all that. So the fear is there, the kind of depression's there. You don't want to add something that can't be done, so now you've got discouragement too. Does that make sense? So can you free yourself in that moment and just do something else? I try to do other things. Like I try to just like, play music or something, or I'll try to like take my dog for a walk and just kind of like mellow. Sometimes I'll actually like practice a really short version of Chenrezig to just kind of, and that definitely sort of brings me out of it while I'm practicing it. Usually when I come back from
disillusionment and the whole thing, the wet blanket just kind of comes back.
Sure, sometimes these states of mind, we don't practice to get a result.
That's been tripping me out lately.
Yeah, we just practice to practice. At the break, can I refer to our thing? Melissa and I were just talking about, we measure our practices too often and with too much judgment and with too much expectation. So we just practice, and we might have a practice that ends in a wet blanket. And we might have another practice where it's like, I got to get up off this cushion and go walking in the park. And we might have another practice where we sit and it was just terrific, blissful, and so uplifting. But those are all gone. Find them. Show me one. You can't pull one of those out and show it. So you're not getting graded. You're not passing any exams, So just keep doing it. And the real measure, the Dalai Lama has said, is take the measurements over time. Is your life better? Are you kinder in general? Are you clearer in general? Measure about every 6 months. How's my practice doing? And don't measure too tightly. Just, yeah, I see some progress. Good enough. Okay, keep doing it. But the expectation that a practice will pull us out of, a long habit of this or that. No, that's not how it's going to work.
Well, that kind of touches on something that I've thought a lot about, is incremental and glacial change that feels like you don't see it happen.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you look back over a year or something, like, whoa, a year ago I was a dirtbag, not necessarily, but
I felt like one.
I felt like a dirtbag. Why was I so mean? And
Yeah.
So
yeah. So you see the progress.
Yeah, I definitely see
that's
progress. It's just sort of,
that's it.
In those negative states, or those, I don't even like saying negative because it's not necessarily negative or positive. It just is. And so I'm like, I know that I can't really escape the feeling. It doesn't go away no matter kind of what I do. I can kind of avert it for a while or whatever, but I still find myself back in it.
Yeah, there's a habit there.
Yeah, it's just
it will change. It took lifetimes to grow it. So our expectation cannot be this lifetime. It will be completely cleaned up. We can kind of hope for that. We can work for that, but it's not realistic, right? And it's like, be kinder to yourself. Encourage yourself. We're so quick to discourage ourselves. And I like those words, discourage, take away my courage. Encourage, add to my courage. Because this path of the Bodhisattva is a path of courage. We got to stand up to it, be responsible for it. That's what we're calling for in ourselves. Chenrezig is all about the courage of unlimited love. That's a hard thing to do, but it's harder not to. And so along the way, it's quite good. I think, like I was just sharing with Melissa at the break, I didn't want to come over here tonight. I was like tired. I was here 2 hours this morning, then we were in a 2-hour board PC meeting. I was like, it's hot, my asthma's up, I don't want to be here. So I was like, okay, Zopa, this is discouragement, how do we meet it? And I thought, okay, what's one of my antidotes? I think about my teachers. Now for me, that works. I just call to mind, okay, I'm not going over there alone. I'm taking Geshe Kelsang with me, Venerable Chidren with me, Lama Maiko with me, and I'm encouraged. For someone else, it's going to be something else. But it can be to encourage yourself, look at your progress. To encourage yourself, remember a time in the Dharma that you were happy. You maybe were here for Kempo Lodro Donyo. I can just picture Kempo sitting up there, and I start feeling really happy. But whatever it is for you, find that and pull it out. It's like, you know, they say about the Dharma, it's a medicine cabinet. And the Buddhist, the doctor, and the Sangha around you are the nurses. But you're the patient. You have to reach in the cabinet and take the medicine. The Buddha's not going to shoot it into you or force it down your throat. So you have to learn what those antidotes are, how Shine works, and then use it over and over and over. Because frankly, not just you, but all of us, we're changing habits of lifetimes. Lifetimes. That's the Buddhist worldview. No beginning, no end. So that's very encouraging, because we got a lot of time to straighten this stuff out. Not just this lifetime. And it's not realistic to think we're going to change these difficult karmic patterns so fast. Another story is someone once said, I wasn't there, but the Dalai Lama was speaking, and he gave a lovely talk, I guess, and then some Westerner said, well, I heard all that, but that's going to take a really long time. Do you have some sort of fast version? And the Dalai Lama just burst into tears, looking at that person suffering of, I have to have it quick and fast or not at all. This is one of our really strange karmic tendencies. You know, we're training for the Olympics here, right? We're going for the top enchilada, freedom, liberation for self and others. My goodness, that's kind of a high bar. So, of course we'll get discouraged. Of course we'll get tired. Of course, you know, we won't want to do this or that. But look at me now, I'm all happy here. I didn't even want to come. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Encourage yourself. Find what does that. Yeah, thank you.
I just want to share a brief coda to my story that is ironic and should be amusing. The reason that I became a Buddhist is because of a disappointment in love.
Yeah, I get
So I really have to be grateful to her for leaving me 3 times. And with each successive departure, my practice got deeper. And as I thought about it, as I mentioned before, I realized that my anger and distress was because I felt disappointed because I deserved the reciprocity. Do you know why she left me? Because she didn't feel she deserved me. I think I have to write her and let her know that that also is false.
Well, you know, as long as we see these wonderful beings who show up in our lives as teachers, who do lead us to these kind of insights, that's again that loving them even more. But love without attachment is hard to come by. Love without attachment, where we want to have a certain outcome. So I'd encourage you, if you write that letter, write it with no expectation. Yeah, none, as much as you can. And that it's just so good to just love people with no expectation. When we can do it, it's tricky. We think we're doing it, but really watch for those little hooks in there, you know. But really just love someone with no expectation of anything. Love them because they're a human and they're just like you and they suffer and they deserve to be happy and they are the Buddha showing up. Every single being is that, the Buddha showing up. Thank you. Thank you all. By this virtue may I quickly realize Mahamudra and establish all beings without exception in this state. Thank you all so very much, and have a good week. Yeah, we'll see you. Is there mind training Thursday? This Thursday? Yeah. Okay. Come to mind training, 7 o'clock.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, I'll threaten to put myself in timeout and not show up. You're welcome. Thank you for coming, Pat.